Well, it's time for another episode of the Church Answers podcast. My name is Jess Rayner. I'm here with my dad, Thom Rayner, and it's always a blast when we get to sit down and take a few minutes and talk about church, talk about what it means to lead the church, talk about what it means to have questions, and more importantly, what it means to have answers, which is why we call it the Church Answers podcast. So welcome. We're glad you're here.
So I was speaking yesterday from the point this podcast is being recorded, Jess, to Pastors Leadership School of Southern Methodists, and had never spoken to them. Had a really, really good time. I spoke at Shaco Springs in Alabama near Talladega. And one thing they talked about was you. And they started talking about how they love to watch and hear you in the podcast, and they love to hear our interaction. The father-son thing that we may often take for granted, just that kind of dynamic. Sure. They absolutely love that. And they were talking about, they were quoting you, Jess. They were quoting you.
I don't know what quote worthy material I have. But I was talking to, who was I talking to earlier this week? I was trying to remember. Anyway, I was describing the podcast. They're like, well, what do you do on the podcast? I said, my job is to keep my dad on task. I feel like that's what it is. He's the brains. He knows what's going on. I'm just there in his older age to make sure he stays on task. And so in order to stay on task right now, before we jump into what we're going to talk about today at the Church Answers podcast, I do want to thank Cheney and Associates. They're one of our sponsors for this podcast. We love the work they're doing. They are there to help you. They're there to help your church. In the area of bookkeeping and finances and accounting, anything that deals with money and numbers in the church, they're there for you. They want you to lead your church, and they're going to do that by handling the numbers. They are accounting firm that understands the church. They
Absolutely
understand the language. They understand pastors. They understand the ministry and the burden. Sometimes they want to lift some of that off of you by taking over and helping you with your finances of your church. So if you have any accounting needs, go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. Go ahead and just right now, just as you're listening to this podcast, put it in there as you're listening to us. Go check them out, see what they do. Set up a time you can talk with them and see what they can do. It's free to just talk with them.
Yep.
And you'll be surprised that any church, any size, any budget, they can help you out. So go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. And see what they can do for you. Well, today on the podcast, we're talking about unforced errors.
Where does that originate, Jess?
It's a sports term.
It is. I know that. What sport?
I don't know that.
Originated in tennis.
Tennis. Okay.
When you were in a volley and the opponent wasn't pressing you and you just hit it out of bounds or you hit it into the net. Or you get distracted and you look away and the ball goes right past you. Those are unforced errors. That means that one caused by the opponent is something you did that you should not have done.
That's right. That's right. So we're talking about unforced errors, not in sports today, but in church life.
Right.
And it's amazing how many times, and I could probably write a whole book on this. How many times I've had unforced errors as a pastor? Just these little things that you can do. You're just like, why did I do that? So often I lament the things that I didn't do, but sometimes I lament the things that, why did I do that? That was, I dropped the ball, to use another sports term.
Yeah. The ball. Boy, the sports metaphors are galore today.
That's right. That's right. And it's amazing sometimes too, like, in football, the guys who are running towards the end zone and drop the ball right before the end zone line.
Do you remember when Alabama's quarterback got his first opportunity last season? Of course, we don't really like to talk too much about last season except for the Iron Bowl. Mm-hmm. And he is so excited. He's running to the end zone and he drops it before he gets to the goal line and didn't even know it.
That's right.
Yeah, just lets it go.
Oh, man. Games have been changed because of those unforced errors. And so today we're going to be talking about one in particular unforced error. And the whole goal of this podcast is help you make sure you are not doing this error. And so we're going to be talking about the time of the worship service on the website, particularly when it's not correct.
This is a biggie, Jess. This is so much bigger than you would think it would be. And by the way, for the listeners and viewers, for you viewers on YouTube, thank you. Hey, subscribe to us. Keep us going. Keep the word out there. At the very least, give us a thumbs up. Mm-hmm. And then for all of you who are listening on your favorite podcast app, give us a rating and review. Just let folks know there that I was watching a podcast, and again, I'm deterring. So you said your role is to keep me on track, but I know that I'm deterring here. I was watching one of my favorite political podcasts, and I'm not going to say which one because by the very fact that I would say it would cause a discussion within itself. And he started off his podcast. He said, "Look, I've got some good content, and I think you're going to like it. But all I want you to do is subscribe."
Right.
He said, "Nothing else matters. Subscribe. I don't care how bad the comment, how good the comment is, just subscribe. Because if you subscribe, it's going to get me a lot more attention. And that's what I want right now. I want attention."
Okay. Well, there you go. Well,
pretty straightforward.
We don't want the attention on us, but we do want the attention on the fact that we want to help churches.
Exactly.
And so if you can subscribe or like, share the word that we're out here, our hope and our goal is that what we're doing in these podcasts is to help churches. And so this one we're looking at helping is about making sure the time in your website is not correct. So maybe think, well, how does that even come about? Like, how do you get the incorrect time?
Oh, I got all kind of stories.
Well, I'm just saying, just at the like what you would think. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that this problem typically happens is when you change a worship service time.
Mm-hmm.
You do it within the life of your church, either permanently or temporarily. Maybe you have a special event, or maybe you just you're doing a service time. And you let your church family know, but you forget to let the community know. And so wherever you have your service times listed, you forget to change them. So
can I give a little prefatory
Sure.
introduction to this? I think that's redundant, prefatory introduction. But because I was speaking, it was a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking to a group, and I just had a show of hands. I said, how many of you are pastors of a church that has no website? 1/3 of them.
No.
1/3 of them. And I said to them, and I was kind, but I said, I want you to know, you do not exist in your community. Mm-hmm. You exist for your members, but you do not exist in your community.
Sure.
And they started asking me questions like, well, how can we get one built? We don't know anything about it. And I mean, all of a sudden they said, ooh, is it really that important? Yes. You don't build websites primarily for your church members. Very few church members go to websites.
Right.
You build websites for those who might come to your church. So I just wanted to bring that out before we even start getting into the unforced era of the time of worship.
Yeah. You build websites for the community. You build apps for the church.
That's right.
Someone who is going to be coming to church is not going to download an app, but that's the world we live in now. All of our internal communication, everything that's happening in the life of our church that I want our church members to know happens with our church app and our church email.
And that's why I am able to keep up. And that's why your mom is always asking me what's going on, because I don't have an app.
There you go. The website, it is the new front door. Mm-hmm. And so, especially with younger generations, if they can't find you online, they're not going to go. And I bet there's a likelihood, if you would have drilled down deeper, that those were older congregations.
Probably because the younger members would say, why don't we have a website? What's going on here?
Somebody would have said something, we need a website. So again, and one of the things, I mean, we talk about this with our certifications and different courses. We mentioned this time and time again. The two biggest things you need on your website are your location and your service times. That should be on the front page.
Yep. And if it when you look at your website on your smartphone, to use an old newspaper phrase, it needs to be above the fold. Mm-hmm. There should not have to be any scrolling when your website shows up on your smartphone or on your PC or Mac as well. But the time of the services and the physical address of your church, those two things more than anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so making sure that's highly visible. So the problem though is that some people make the decision to change their service times. Maybe you have multiple services, or maybe even for a particular event, and you do not change it on your website. Now, you may have your service times, and this is important. I don't know if we were going to get into this exactly, but we are talking about digital platforms here in a minute. But you may put them in a lot of different places, your church service times. At some point, you need to do an inventory of every single place your service time is listed. I know for us, it's on our website. It's on our Church Center app. It is on our Facebook page. It is on our Google listing. So
All
those are
the
the
above.
places that all
Yes.
of our service times. And so anytime we make a strategic change with the service, I know exactly where to go to make sure they change. I don't know what to take. So you need to start by creating inventory. Where are your service times listed? You need to
Hmm.
scrub. You need to even go do a Google search. Type in whatever your
Google
church
search
name
yourself.
is, service
Exactly.
times, and just start making sure you know every single place. Because who knows? Maybe someone did a Yelp at some point and they added that. You have to be able to go and make sure you know exactly where every single place is. And so the error is you forget to go and change it.
Hey,
They
and this was started. The whole idea was started by your middle brother, my middle son, Art. He's at the beach in the Panhandle, and he happens to be going to the beach on Easter weekend.
Mhm.
And normally I'd say, "What are you doing?" Well, he's not going to let his family miss church any weekend, but particularly Easter weekend.
Mhm.
So he Googles local churches in the area. He finds one that's fairly close. He says, "We're going to go to that church." That church says worship time is at 10:30. They drive up to the church at about 10:20, 10:25. The big sign in the yard says Easter services at 10 o'clock.
Mm.
They were 25 to 30 minutes into the service when Art and his family arrived. You know what
Yep.
they did? You know what they did?
Yeah, I do.
They left.
They left. They went to another church.
They
They
went
found
to
a church
another.
at a 10:30 start time, and they went to that other church. Yeah, so it's important to understand even for those one-offs. So like on our website, for example, if so, something we do every year. I'll use an example because you may be thinking, do you really change your service times that much? You may make a strategic change and then you go through and you do a scrub. But what's common, especially for us, is either a weather situation or typically the last Sunday of the year, we go to one service.
Hmm.
So instead of having 9 a.m. and 10:30, we just do a 10:30 service. And so you have to go communicate that on all your platforms. And
Yep.
so for our website, what we do rather than going in and making all the strategic changes in a website for a one service, we actually create a banner on the front page of our website. Super big, it pops up, it's right there in your face, and we make sure, hey, for this Sunday, 10:30 a.m. service, there is no 9 o'clock service.
Right.
We have road signs. So maybe your church says this. We put out weekly road signs that have our service times on it. We have a second set of signs that says 10:30 service only. So for those strategic weeks, or if it's a snow day and we're going to decide to go, because it's very rare we drop the 10:30 and keep the 9.
Hmm.
If it's a snow day, we're gonna hopefully start later and do a 10:30. So we have those signs in place.
Yes, listeners and viewers, Nashville does have snow days.
That's right. Well, we have snow accumulation that turns into a fiasco. Yeah.
When it melts and becomes ice, that's the
Well,
big
2
problem.
inches of snow means that no one's getting out for 2 days. I
Hmm.
think I figured this out. For every inch of snow is about how long people won't go out.
It becomes a vacation if you get a foot.
It is. Uh, Not this winter, but the winter before. 5 days, my son was out of school for 5 inches of snow.
Wow.
I don't know if I just realized that every inch of snow equals about how many days Nashville area is going to be closed down.
We need to create a resource on that.
And so all I'm saying is that you got to think through all the places. If you have a Google listing, you can go in and put temporary hours on your Google listing. It's a Google business listing. Hopefully you're on Google Maps. If you don't,
Facebook.
yeah. So all these things that you can make strategic changes. And here's why. Guests often rely on the church website or Google to find the service times, especially for holidays like Easter and Christmas.
And these are for the guests. Your
Mhm.
insiders know what's going on for the most part. Probably said it 2 or 3 times during a service, or they have written communication sometimes. Sometimes they have it on the app like we do at the Church of Spring Hill. But the insiders pretty much know it. But somebody that just wants to visit, nah. They're going to Google. They're going to your website. They're going to probably go to Google and then from there go to your website. That's where
Right.
most people go.
Right. Just think about this. All the effort you put into getting the word out about your church. And then that one time that they're going to show up, they miss it because of some small discrepancy.
I wonder how many guests that church missed on Easter Sunday.
I can't even begin to fathom.
I mean, Art turned around and he saw another car turn around. That was 2 within 30 seconds.
Hmm. Man, because that's what we're here. We're here to reach the community. That's
Yep.
what we want to do. Uh,
Unforced errors.
Unforced errors. If you want to talk about a way you can reach your community without any unforced errors, to keep with the sports theme,
Ooh,
you need to go to upward.org/church answers. You want
I
to talk
wish
about
I
a
wish they
group
had
that
I wish they had pickleball.
they do have pickleball.
They got pickleball.
They got pickleball.
Pickleball. Oh man, I love pickleball. Never
Oh,
played it. I just love talking about it.
yeah, Dad, we need to get you on the pickleball court. As much as you love talking about it, you need to get out there and actually hit it around. So
I have been told that the way that I play ping pong, I could probably pick up the game pretty quickly.
I think so. I think so. Well, we'll have to. Hey, there's some brand new pickleball courts about 15 minutes from my house, Dad. We'll do that. And who knows? We'll get a hold of upward.org. Go to upward.org/church answers, and you can say, I heard Tom Rainer's going to start playing pickleball.
Pickleball.
If he can do that, I can use pickleball to reach my community, and that's what Upward is going to do for you. It's great for middle schoolers, high schoolers, adults. It's easy to learn. Pickleball is a growing sport. People will want to be a part of it, and so go to upward.org/church answers, and just see if they can help you reach your community through pickleball.
So many sports. I think they started with basketball, and over the years, over the decades, they just keep adding great sports.
That's right.
Now
That's right.
pickleball.
So you go ahead and again, they're one of our sponsors for this podcast. This is why we're talking about pickleball. We're talking about Upward. They're going to make sure you don't have these unforced errors when reaching your community. And that's what we're trying to do here today as well. We're trying to make sure you don't have an unforced error and it comes to the worship service time. And so far, this error occurs when churches change their service times. We know that guests often rely on the church website because here's the reality, and we've mentioned this in different ways. Even a small discrepancy can cause guests to arrive late and leave before entering, feeling unwelcomed and confused.
You don't want that. You don't want some. I didn't think this was going to start at this time. I don't know what's going on. You don't want a guest anxious before he or she walks into the door.
Yeah, because here's the reality. Say you have a 10:30 start time, and that one particular Sunday, you started at 10 a.m. And because here's what happens. Typically, welcome team, a greeter team, your greeter ministry, if you have a 10 o'clock start time, by 10:30, they're probably in the service.
That's right.
So
They're not out there anymore.
There's a really good chance if some reason that guest walks in at 10:30 and they walk in when the preacher's already started preaching, do you know what that's going to do to them? Like, think about it. If you have a guest, they are putting on so much bravery, so much courage to come to your church for the first time.
Yep.
And the potential hurt that can cause someone of them being so brave, and then they walk in the middle of the service and everyone's looking at them. Like that can be super damaging potentially to reaching this person for Christ.
Some churches, we do at a certain point, but some churches actually lock their access door. They have someone ready to let people in, but for safety reasons, they just don't leave it open.
Right.
And it could be in our case, the security officer could, turn his head for just a moment and someone's pulling on the door and it's locked when you don't have the times right.
Yep.
So many things can happen wrong.
Yeah, all those things. So those small discrepancies, right? They can cause a guest to arrive late. And again, these are simple things you can do to not have these unforced errors. Outdated digital information, right? If you communicates disorganization, can unintentionally defer future guests.
Yes, it's. We think of all the work we put into it. Let's think about the pastor and sermon prep. Let's think about the community group or Sunday school teachers and their prep and the welcome team and the facility group. And I could just go on. They're doing all this stuff. And because we got our website messed up, and our digital information is not current, all those things are for naught for many of the guests. That's a travesty.
Yeah, and Dan, I don't think I've ever asked you this question. How often would you recommend a church go through their website? Just scrub it. Just go through, have a read, volunteer, go through, and just
quarterly.
That I was thinking that more like monthly.
Quarterly at the very least. Look, Jess. If you say monthly, we're going to lose 90% of the churches.
Okay.
Let's be realistic. Quarterly.
Well, and that even raises another thought. If you have a website, if you have a social media presence, who's in charge of it?
Yeah, and I said find a really good, capable teenager or young person who's responsible.
Yeah. If you have a website and there is not a person who is in charge of that website, that probably needs to be the first thing you go do. Because so like, I have very thankful have a staff member who's over admin and communications. They're over the website, and they're constantly in the website, constantly reviewing it. I go to the website, I'd say weekly. Um, maybe not every week, but I definitely don't go more than 2 weeks without going to the website. At some point, I just check in. In fact, recently, I came across a discrepancy between our desktop and mobile versions. And that's really important to know. If you have a dynamic website, not a static website, a dynamic website that molds to mobile, what can happen is the content can shift from platform to platform. And
Mm-hmm.
so I typically go on our desktop version. Well, recently I went to the mobile version. That's rare I do that. And I realized there's a strategic change in our website where we lose the giving tab. It's
Oh
hidden
yeah,
underneath
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. I
hidden
saw that.
underneath another
You
layer
and I talked about that,
when you go
right?
to the mobile version. And so I had our admin director say, hey, can you go change this one spot? Because we had a little bit of redundancy with some things on our front page. And I said, can you just change this instead of watch online to give here? Super strategic change that now someone can go. And so that kind of thinking is like, you need someone who's overseeing this, who is a responsible, and ask them, at least once a quarter, every 2 months. If they can do it monthly, that's a huge win. But go
Yep.
through and consistently look at that, because you don't want outdated information. And here's the key: maintain consistency across all digital platforms.
Yep.
Yep.
If someone is on their Mac or their PC, and then for some other time they're looking at it on their smartphone, they need to be able to see the same thing. I sent you a website of a little venture that I'm working on right now, and I looked at it on mobile, and it did not line up.
Right. Yep.
So I that was where it was not consistent. So the consistency has to take place. The consistency across all devices, all platforms, website, social media, maps, all of these things has to be consistent.
Yeah. So to recap, the main thing we want you to avoid, the unforced error we want you to avoid is make sure the time of your worship service is correct on all digital platforms.
Mm-hmm.
Create an inventory. Figure out where you have them all listed. Create a master list. Find a volunteer who can oversee this. Teach them at the bare minimum to go and how to change the service times. That make sure your address is correct. Make sure that the contact email. Just all these little things that you can do for guests.
And let me interrupt. That address needs to be the physical address. P.O. Box does nothing for your guest. You don't want them going to your post office box. They won't fit.
That's right. They need to find you. And so these are small things you can do. And again, this one's super, super practical, which I love that we do. And maybe you didn't know you had the question about changing the service time, even if it's just for a one-off week. Always make sure that's up to date, because you never know who's going to show up on a given Sunday. We had a Good Friday night of worship recently, and
Oh, it's a
so
great service.
we put the service times out there. We made sure it was very prominent, because it was not a typical service that we have. We went on all our social medias and everything, listed the service time, and we had guests show up at the Good Friday service on
Oh, yeah.
time. They found it. And so it's those little things you can do to make sure that you are not having unforced errors. So
Another unforced error is trying to do all the finances yourself, all
that's
the
right.
bookkeeping yourself. And even though you have to pay someone like a Cheney to do this for you, you're not really expensing it. You are investing in it. Tell us about Cheney.
Yeah, we mentioned them at the top of the podcast, and here's, as we close out, we want to mention Cheney and Associates one more time. Go to CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. And go, yeah, they will not have any unforced errors. In fact, they're going to help you find these unknown errors you might have.
Exactly.
They're so good at what they do. They're efficient. They're smart. They understand church. They're ministry first. And that's what I love. Right? They are all about ministry, and that the fact that bookkeeping and finances supports and enhances ministry. It doesn't lead ministry. And so they get that, and they're going to help you and your church have the right information, real-time information, that you can go and make decisions. So many strategic decisions are based off finances. It happens at my church. They're like, well, do we have money for this?
Exactly.
And so if you can have accurate, up-to-date information, you're going to make better strategic decisions as you lead your church. So go check out Cheney Associates. They want you to lead your church, so let them handle the numbers, gain clear financial insights to guide your ministry decisions with confidence. CheneyAssociates.com/church answers. Well, thanks so much for being with us on this Church Answers podcast. We talked about some unforced errors, particularly within the church website with service times, but we're going to talk about another one. So check us out in the next episode. We look forward to seeing you then.
Bye.